Race UK. She's a royal pain in the arse. Michelle Visage.
Hello, Governor.
Blue Hydrangea.
Oh God, evolution moment.
I'm taking Queen Elizabeth and I'm making her Disney.
Actually, I recognize quite a few of these girls. Vinegar was my dance partner, and everybody's talking about Jamie on the West End.
And I loved the stab. When you turned around and had lip me, I mean, what a twist. That was up there with Shawshank Redemption with kind
Guess who's back in the house? I hope that you guys are having a lovely day. The day has come. I finally got a chance to watch RuPaul's Drag Race UK. It actually premiered yesterday. I wanted to go to a bar to watch it, but I couldn't. There were actually several viewing parties across Los Angeles. I couldn't go to any of them. So today after work, I went to a bar in West Hollywood that was having a viewing party. So excited. So glad to meet these new contestants. And so one thing, I was at a loud bar. It was extremely loud. And with the accents, the colloquialisms, and just certain kind of like British slang words, some things I did not understand. And so this will be kind of like a very different review for me, just because some things just did not translate into North American English. And so I think by the end of this season, I would have learned a lot about British humor. So there are 10 contestants, and I'm really kind of like loving the show as it is now. So first contestant is the Vivienne, who is from Liverpool, and in 2016, RuPaul crowned her as the UK's drag ambassador. I don't know if it was a competition that she entered, but she got a crown, and it looked like she got a scepter as well. And so people were saying, well, she was saying that I hope people don't think that I was placed on the show because I am the ambassador. I had to audition like everyone else, and I will claw my way to the top. So I really like that about the Vivienne. Baga Chipz is from London, and I love her stage name. She got her name because she was at a bar and this guy was flirting with her, and she happened to be with one of her really good friends. And so the good friend said, she's like a prime steak. And the guy flirting with Baga was like, no, she's more like a bag of chips. And so the name stuck. So I really like that. I wasn't wowed by Baga Chip's entrance look. It was very simple for her introduction to the world. Then we have Something Wong. um, During kind of like all of the press, I actually thought her name was Something Warm. And so I was like, oh, it's Wong. And so her name comes from a meme where someone created a meme about a missing Asian plane, and they made up a ton of names. And one of the names of one of the passengers on this missing flight was Something Wong. And so I like that she really, just her name, and from what I've seen, she really likes to address race. And so I really appreciate that. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing more from her. Her interest look did not wow me. Her lace front was just screaming at me. I wish she would have kind of like blended it a little bit more. She seems like she's 7 foot tall, um, just towered over everyone else. And so she really commands um, space. And when she walks into the room, your eyes go immediately to her. I every like when during kind of like the scene where everyone is has kind of like entered into the workroom and they're talking, my eyes kept going back to her. So I'm really excited about her. Scaredy Cat is from Wiltshire. I've never heard of that city. And she has been doing drag for 11 months, is 19, and is disgustingly talented. Her promo look tends across the board. Her entrance look tends across the board. Her paint tends across the board. I loved her complete look. I'm curious if she sews her outfits or kind of like pieces them together. But she is just incredible in such a short period of time. She's engaged to be married, and her partner is also a drag queen. And her name is kind of like the female anatomy, and then Katt. So you can use your imagination to guess the name. And so I am obsessed with her, just already. So I'm curious to see how she fares in the competition. Blue Hydrangea, she is from Belfast, and she kind of disappeared during the kind of like Meet the Queens. She faded to the background. Her look was okay, but I really didn't get a lot from her. And during the rest of the episode, until the main challenge, I really forgot about her. Next is Crystal, and she is originally from Montreal, Canada, but lives in London. And I believe she said that she's been doing drag for about 10 years. And so I am really rooting for Crystal. She described herself as being glamorous, sparkly, and absolutely worthless. And when she walked into the drag room, she said, drag room, when she walked into the workroom, her tagline was, maybe she's born with it, maybe it's body dysmorphia. And so everyone in the bar just kind of like fell on the floor laughing. I thought her look was kind of like very camp. She kind of like had a uni boob. It was simple, but I really liked it. I wasn't like wowed by it, but if I saw her performing at a bar, I would tip her. Then we had Davina De Campo, and De Campo is a play on camp. She calls herself a camp queen, and I actually really like camp queens. And so I'm really intrigued if we'll get more camp from her, because I really didn't get that this episode. And Divina is Italian for divine. She is the Monique Hart of the UK series, where she was narrating the entire episode. And had she said something to the effect of kind of like, UK, my face is giving you all that you need to know, I would have fell on the ground. And I hope she continues to narrate the episodes, because I loved it. And so I hope she goes really far in the season. Then we have Sheryl Hole, and she's from Essex. And Sheryl Hole's name is a play on Cheryl Cole, who happens to be in a girl group called Girls Aloud. And Cheryl plays in kind of like a tribute drag troupe called Gals Aloud, and she plays Cheryl. And so I really liked her. She actually had one of my favorite looks for her entrance look. So she was kind of like wearing kind of like a nude bodysuit, but there was this deep V cut ribbon material, and then that was black, and she had really interesting black fringe material on her arms, shoulders, and on her legs that almost resembled hair. And so it was simple, but it had an effect. Like the fringes looked like hair, and so it had great movement. And she had a very clean blonde ponytail, and it all just worked very well together. So I really loved her. Next we have Vinegar Strokes, and she's from London. Vinegar, before the show, was in a drag show in the West End called There's Something About Jamie, which co-starred Michelle Visage. And so I don't know at what part of the like how far along they were in the show, but Vinegar told Michelle, I plan on auditioning for this show. And Michelle said, don't ask me for any advice. And if you get on, know that I'm going to treat everyone the same, so there won't be any favoritism. And so I'm actually curious. I wish I would have I really want to see this show, because Vinegar actually graduated from a theater program in London, and is kind of like a well-respected actor. And so I really appreciate that. And Vinegar out of drag looks like a retired NFL player, and I am here for it. Very handsome man. And so I feel like he's more campy, even though I don't know if he would necessarily identify as campy. But I get a camp-like vibe from Vinegar, because Vinegar isn't kind of like a necessarily kind of like look queen or a pretty queen, but I really feel that Vinegar can just kind of like just camp out and really get a standing ovation from a crowd in drag. And so I think that Vinegar is going to be top 3. I really feel that way. I wasn't wowed by her entrance look, though. It was very plain, and everyone really seemed to know her, which I thought was really interesting when she walked out. And her tagline was, I'm not a bit of a slag, I'm a full-on slag, or something to that effect. I didn't know the reference, but apparently it's a line from the EastEnders, which I believe is based out in the States, but I could be wrong. Or maybe it's kind of like 2 different shows that I'm thinking of. And so then we have Gothy Kendoll, who Gothy Kendoll said that when he was younger, he would wear all black. And so he referred to himself as a goth, but he would tan religiously. And so he looked like he was a goth, but looked like more like a Kendoll. And so I was kind of like intrigued by his entrance look. It looked very comfortable, but it was ultimately a tracksuit. But it was a very feminine tracksuit that the material looked almost like it was like a chiffon like material. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was very soft, whatever it was. And it was this beautiful shade, like this kind of like deep purple, but they were almost kind of like it wasn't glitter, but it was like a glittery effect on it, and so it looked like what a female actress from the like 40s or 50s who lived in Bel Air. It's something that she would vacuum her house in wintertime. And so I really liked it. And so but she seemed very kind of like guarded, which I kind of like people who, first episode we meet them, they seem very kind of like reserved and guarded, because I'm curious if they will come out of their shell. So we go to the mini challenge, and it's a headless photo shoot. And so Scaredy Katt wins, which I didn't think that she had the best photo. But it was kind of like an interesting take out of kind of like all of the other photos. She pretended to be kind of like crapping out her head. And if you can make Rue laugh during a mini challenge, you know you're going to win. And so Rue was just kind of like laughing hysterically with her. Excuse me, I still have a cold, sorry. And so they learned the maxi challenge is to pay homage to the Queen of England and to create a look. I didn't realize that the Queen was 93. And so they had decades to pull from different looks that she's worn throughout the years. And so they also had to create a hometown look as well. So I'm a little pressed for time, so I'm not going to talk about the hometown look. But my favorite hometown look was from Scaredy Katt. She looked like this water nymph, woodsland creature who lives in the mountains and only comes out during the day. Very Coachella, very Valley Girl. It was so beautiful. I loved it. And I'm actually not going to talk about all of the looks from the actual like homage to the Queen. I'm just going to talk about my favorites. Hands down, the best looks from the runway were Blue Hydrangea and Something Wong. They killed it. Blue Hydrangea came out as the Queen on a British pound. She had the coin on her head. It's bronze color. And she wore a matching bronze gown. And the gown was incredible. It was kind of like one of those gowns that has like it looks like it has the little the hoop skirt underneath, so it flares out, and it has a beautiful silhouette. And the delivery and the execution were a total 10. Killed it. Something Wong came out as the Queen on a postage stamp with a 1 pound symbol, and she actually wore a beautiful gown with it. But the thing that I loved the most was, so like the kind of like postage part was her head, and on the back of the stamp it said "Lick me." How genius is that? That they totally took this concept and went kind of like out of the ballpark. And so I loved both of them. And I was really shocked that Blue was considered safe by the judges panel. And Something was actually kind of like with the tops and bottoms, which she deserved to be there. And so those were my favorite looks. The Vivienne was the queen, I think, going hunting. And she had this kind of like, I guess, this very English style hunting coat with a interesting skirt. And what are those called? Wellingtons? The like rain boots, which I actually really want a pair of those because they are gorgeous. And she had this kind of like raccoon tail thing hanging from her like belt loop. And Michelle, when she came out, because during her hometown look, she paid homage to Pete Burns from Dead or Alive, and she looked so beautiful as Pete Burns. And I think Pete Burns, when she was alive, had such great style. And so I didn't know this, that Pete Burns, when she was alive, she wore these kind of like Gucci boots all the time, which I didn't know that. But oh my gosh, I love Pete Burns' style, just impeccable. So she was Pete Burns, and then she kind of like transformed into this kind of like older looking queen, and RuPaul said that she looked more like George Washington than the Queen. Everyone in the bar just kind of like just died in laughter. And Michelle said that she loved her prosthetic nose, and she actually wasn't even wearing a prosthetic nose. It was her real nose, but it was the way that she did her makeup and the transformation from Pete Burns to an older Queen look. And so surprisingly, the Vivienne won the maxi challenge, which I didn't agree with that. I thought it should have been blue or something. Also, one of my other favorite looks was Scaredy Katt. She was a baby queen, and she created this vision of the queen when she was much younger. And so I really appreciated that. And it was kind of like a more dramatized version of the look, where some of the queens, their looks were very simple. They weren't dragged up. And so I love that it was very conceptual and completely dragged out. So in the bottom, we have Vinegar and Gothy, which I didn't know if I agreed with Vinegar being in the bottom. Although her hometown look, she gave homage to the Thames River. It was kind of like a stretch, but it definitely wasn't the worst look. And her queen look was the queen during the 70s, wearing this really elegant, kind of like cape-esque gown look. I think she was in the bottom because the gown didn't hit the floor. Maybe if the gown hit the floor, she wouldn't have been in the bottom. It was an odd length. And so they perform, and my eyes stayed on Vinegar the entire time. Gothy was giving some my first time in drag dance routine that seemed just like she was trying to remember in her head what to do at what time. It was awful. And the song was, I think her name, I actually don't even know how to pronounce her name, but I think it's Dua Lupa. I could be butchering that, but New Rules, which is, it can be a difficult song to perform to. And so, Vinegar, it was like a massacre on the stage. She killed her. It was beautiful and difficult to watch. Vinegar killed it. She had this amazing wig reveal that left me and the entire bar gagging. I loved it. And so, excuse me, Vinegar won the lip sync. And so we had to say goodbye to Gothy. So Gothy goes down in history as the first girl to be eliminated from Drag Race UK. And she actually wrote on the mirror that I'm UK's pork chop. And as she was leaving the stage, she actually said, um, Miss Kendoll, Miss Kendoll, and was voguing. So that was a cute moment. And so I love the entire episode. I can't wait for episode two. And episode two actually has um, the young actress from Game of Thrones and Graham Norton, who actually love watching Graham's talk show from time to time on YouTube. So this is the end of my review. I actually have to rush it because I have to rush to go back out to West Hollywood to hang out with friends. So I hope that you guys like the review. If this is your first time watching my channel, please subscribe. I add content every week. If you have returned, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it and I love you. Please like and share this video and tell all your friends about my channel so you can help me grow. Until next time, love yourself and love everyone in the community, especially our trans sisters and brothers. They're the most vulnerable in the community. And I will see you guys next week for episode 2 of Drag Race UK. Besos. Mwah.